Well, thank you all for coming today to this first session of three for the Manchester Law Journal. The idea is to very simply give practical tips on how to put a proposal together. Although it says research proposal here, the idea is a sort of set of tips how to write a proposal from scratch, either for an academic journal, for a PhD, for an LLM, even for an LLB dissertation, for a book proposal, or for, in this case, an academic paper for the Manchester Law Journal. You will see a few logos. I'll explain this later. Well, my name is Jorge. I work right now for Manchester University, Manchester Metropolitan, and I represent globally a foundation. We work with children, Fundación Angélica Goulart from Brazil. My contact details, this is my personal website, my personal Twitter, and then my professional email account. Feel free to send me an email if you have any question or comment. The plan today, I'm going to be recording the first part of the session in which I explain the kind of things we aim to achieve. And then I'll let you know when I stop the recording in order to have one-to-ones with the people who are here today and in order to build up first of all, the proposal. We'll cover very basic elements of any proposal. Again, it may be a book proposal, it may be a proposal for an academic paper, it may be a PhD proposal. The idea, very briefly, I'll introduce the structure. I'll put an example of my own work just to show you in practical terms how it should look like. And I'm going to mainly target 2 or 3 components of the complete proposal. Once again, this is the first of 3 sessions. So I'm going to target the title, the aims, and the objectives about this research proposal. And then again, I'll stop the recording and we'll start, the more practical part of the session today. Usually a research proposal, any book publisher or any university will want to see a title, aims, objectives, the research background, the kind of methodology you will apply, the bibliography. And if you are going to add, and this is usually for PhDs and for books proposals, the appendices. Once again, I'm going to cover the very first points, title, aims, and hopefully objectives today. We'll talk about methodology and design of methodology and the bibliography and how to do academic research later on, probably in the second session. Again, this is a brief introduction, and I'm going to explain in more detail these 3 components later. But mainly, the title. The kind of title you will need to address for any kind of research project, the dissertation, PhD, or book, will have to do with how can you tell your reader, and always have in mind or bear in mind, you have someone in front of you, your reader, how you can make clear with a few terms, a few expressions, the core idea behind what you are trying to do. The title, and again, this is my view, some people may disagree with this, but the title should be self-explanatory. If you are going to try to sound too clever and you may want to use a particular book as a reference or a particular film, let's say The Matrix, people may know, but they don't need to know what you refer to. So my advice should be try to be as clear as possible in the title, give a clue about what your complete article, your complete book, your complete dissertation will be about. You may add, if you need further clarification, a subtitle. Try to be precise as well. I put an example here, the transition to the Supreme Court, Justice in an Age of Austerity. Although this is a clear title, what I would suggest for these kind of titles, first of all, today we have a global audience. We have people today from Hong Kong as well as from the UK. With this title, the transition to the Supreme Court, I cannot tell whether I'm talking about the UK or China, for instance. So ideally, I would like more precision in this title. So for instance, the transition to the Supreme Court in the UK or the UK Supreme Court. And the other one, the subtitle, Justice in an Age of Austerity. What do we mean by Age of Austerity? Are we talking about the 70s and 80s in this country, in the UK? Are we talking about the current situation? And are we talking about the 1930s, the worldwide crisis? So again, I'd like to be a bit more specific when we set the title, because by setting the title, you set the intention. You let your reader know the intention behind that paper you're writing or that book you're writing, or the proposal you're aiming to send to your publisher, and so on. So again, this example, the transition to the Supreme Court, justice in an age of austerity, I would add a bit more precision. The aim and the objectives. One of the things you have to make clear, usually at the start, page 1 or page 2, if I'm reading again your academic paper or your book, it has to come early in both of them, and in your proposal even more so. What is your ambition? What do you try to obtain by writing that paper? What are you trying to prove? What are you trying to explore? What are you trying to compare? What are you trying to tell your reader? Why your reader should read your work? Why that work is important? Although it can be broad, it cannot be as broad as anything and everything. That is why, again, coming back to the title, you have to bring a bit of precision. And then the objectives. The objectives are the most precise of these 3 points: title, aims, and objectives. The objectives will have to be written in a certain form in the infinitive, and I'll explain this later. And you have to be very, very clear, very precise about how these objectives, how these points work towards making your aim possible. So suppose your main aim is to explore territorial disputes and to find a solution. That's my kind of research. So my kind of objectives will have to do with territorial disputes. One of the very precise objectives may be to define key conceptual elements such as state and sovereignty. Suppose here, the title, the transition to the Supreme Court. The aims may be to explore how, in the age of austerity back in the 80s, the Supreme Court struggled to rule on certain cases related to contract law, to put an example. So my objectives will have to do with that time frame, the 80s, and that particular law, contract law. By whom? By the Supreme Court in this country. So the objectives may be to compare and contrast case law decided by the Supreme Court in the UK between 1981 and 1985. We need that level of precision in the objectives. So if you want to compare visually, this should look like a pyramid. Yeah. So the broader part is the title, and all of them are linked. A bit of a narrow part, it would be in the middle, it would be the aim, and then the very pointed part, the extremely narrow part, the objectives. They have to be very, very precise, and all of them, remember, form part of the same item, the same proposal, the same book, the same dissertation, or the same journal article. I will not explain this today. However, I'm going to introduce what I mean by structure, or the research background, and the methodology. Again, we will not cover this today. We will cover this in further sessions. The research background basically is the rest of your paper or your book or your research proposal. What do I mean by this? You will have to make clear the kind of structure your book or academic paper will have. Will it have an introduction? Will it have a conclusion? How many chapters? How many sections? How many subsections? Again, it takes planning, and I'll explain this in my next one. One of the main points, literature review. We are working here in an academic environment. You will have to do research about what has been written before in terms of that particular theme, in terms of that particular subject matter. To put it short, you are meant to be the expert on that particular field, on that particular point, on that particular argument you are making. If you claim to be the expert, if you claim to have a new angle, if you claim to have a new point of view, you will have to prove that. How do you do that? By doing the literature review. You will have to do research about that particular item, and again, we'll talk about how to do this. And you will have to gather that information, and to, between inverted commas, translate that information into writing. You will have to somehow incorporate that in your academic paper or in your book or in your PhD. Justification. In order for your reader to be paying attention to what you are writing, you have to tell him or her why this is important, what is new about your point of view, what is different about your point of view, what is, again, the big expression here, important about your point of view. Why should I care? Why should I, as a reader, why should I invest my time in reading what you are writing? Novelty, I'm not going to refer today to this again, I'll do it in my next session, but that's the main difference between, let's say, LLB, LLM degrees, master's degree, and the PhDs, or writing your own book. When you are doing up to an LLM, you are meant to be the expert on that particular theme, on that particular field. A PhD or writing a book is something rather different. It's a step up, the highest probably step in terms of intellectual development. Why? Because you bring something new, something novel to the science you are talking about, you are dealing with. Again, more details in my next sessions. And the last part I will cover in these 3 sessions, how to do research, how to do academic research and legal research, what kind of search engines you should be using, and I'm going to talk about plagiarism and the format we are asking here at the Manchester Law Journal. So my way of doing any kind of written work, whether informally using my blogs or whether more formally writing a book or earlier writing the book proposal, I tend to use this metaphor that comes from India. The idea behind, 6 blind men that for the first time bumped into an elephant. They start talking to each other and they start touching the elephant. One of them may touch the leg, and the blind man touching the leg may feel, well, this is very sturdy, this feels like a column, this is quite thick, but not too big. So this feels, the elephant overall may have the shape of a column. Somebody else may say, no, this is not a column, this cannot be a column. That somebody else is touching the tail. Although it's circular, it's wrinkly, and it's not that thick. It feels more like a rope. So the elephant may have the shape of a rope. And somebody else touching the skin of the elephant says, no, this is not a rope. The elephant cannot have the shape of a column either. This feels like a wall. It's very large, very sturdy, I agree, but very tall and very wide. This cannot be a column, this not be a rope, this is certainly a wall, and so on. So what I'm trying to say, all these blind men in this metaphor are right to a point. Why? Because they are addressing part of the elephant. How do you eat an elephant? Chunk by chunk. The same idea you will apply when you're writing an academic paper or when you're writing a book. You will address a portion of that reality you want to explore, whether contract law, whether criminal law, in which jurisdiction, the UK or China, Australia or Brazil, and so on. What is the main and the most important part? Do not assume that you are thinking about that, your reader will know. You will have to translate that into writing. You will have to have a certain level, a certain degree of specificity in terms of which part, which portion of the elephant, between inverted commas, you will explore. You may have different kind of view, and again, I'll explore this while explaining this when we talk about methodology. You may have a unidimensional view. So let's assume if we talk about jurisdictions, you may talk about the law in the UK, or you may have a change of perspective, what I call a multidimensional view. You may use comparative law, and you may compare the law in China and the law in the UK. You may use not only law, but you may use any other sciences, law, sociology. In my case, and I'll put the example in a second, I apply law, political science, and international relations. You may use not one, but more than one method that is called methodology design rather than methodology on its own, and so on. So again, both versions are right. it depends on what kind of research you want to do. You may have a unidimensional view, which may have to do with a part of that elephant, one particular method in one particular jurisdiction, or you may go for a perspective change, a multidimensional view. You may approach the same particular element, the same particular theme, using different methodologies, using different sciences as references. That is why your kind of research and your kind of article, your kind of PhD, your kind of book may have to do with rules, legal norms only, or they may incorporate statistics, let's say facts, and they may incorporate your own point of view. That's usually, again, for step up, PhDs and books, when you incorporate your own value judgment and you bring a new angle to the science of reference, in this case, law. Just to put an example about my work, the one in blue has to do with my book published in 2017, and the one in green, 2020. So I'm going to use as an example, let me see, yes, the one in 2020. I'm referring to both because I've done several presentations, in order to show this. This is the structure. These kind of things, again, I'll discuss in my second section, but those are the kind of things I already had in mind when I was drafting. I tend to take a blank piece of paper and I literally write, you may use post-it note, the different and potential future titles and subtitles. Then they will be my sections and subsections. If I'm writing an academic paper, this may be my chapters or sections within the chapters if I'm writing or if I'm aiming to write a complete book or a PhD. Again, I do that very early. I'll discuss this in detail in the next session because I want just to show you, the example about the aims. My chapters in particular, each of the chapters that would be one of your academic papers, it's usually about the same length. I set for each individual chapter the intention, the aim. So let's assume this one, my chapter 2 in the book published in 2020, the complete chapter is about the state. It's a standalone article, the chapter 2. And the complete chapter 2 refers to one particular concept related to territorial disputes. Let me go back here. The title of the book is Territorial Dispute and State Sovereignty. So all my chapters are related to those two concepts, territorial dispute and state sovereignty. My chapter 2, the whole title of the chapter is state. The intention, the aim behind the chapter is to explore the concept of state, between inverted commas, through three sciences: law, political science, and international relations. Why I'm doing this? And I explain the justification. Because I discovered by doing my research that although different disciplines use the same concept, they use it with a different conception, a different meaning behind that concept. We assume when we meet lawyers and political scientists, to put an example, that we use the same terms, the same concept with the same meaning. We don't. That is why it's not surprising to me that we don't come to solutions to some conflict like Jerusalem, Falklands, Kashmir, Gibraltar, and so on. And in order to do that, then I deconstruct the concept into the elements and theories. I'm not going to explain, what I do exactly because today it's not about my book. It's about how, to show you I do my work and try to, to bring an example. So again, this is one section within one chapter within my complete book. So my book is about territorial disputes. That's the title, and state sovereignty. The chapter 2, the complete title is state. Within that chapter, one of the sections, many sections, but one of the sections, state and its elements. Again, translated to your own academic paper or proposal for a paper, for a book, or for a PhD, or for an LLM, you should set a clear intention. How do you do that? In academic writing, this is signposting. By writing down your titles and subtitles, headings and subheadings. What I did before here, my structure. I would advise you to do this. if you do have word count limitations, usually again, even for a book, when you send a book proposal, you have to let your potential publisher know how long your book will be. You have to set the intention as well. And I would recommend, again, when you do your blank piece of paper, how long each of the sections, even if I'm writing only one academic paper, how long each of the part of that academic paper will be. So let's assume first part, the introduction. Let's assume this is an academic paper, not a book. This academic paper will have 3 sections. Each of the sections will be roughly 3,000 words. So altogether, the complete academic paper will be about 9,000 to 10,000 words. I do that very early before I start writing. I set already the intention about where I'm going with the title and the aim, and then how am I going to do this in terms of extension. Each of my sections will have a particular word count limitation. I decide that. My main frame will be dictated by the publisher, or in this case, by the Manchester Law Journal. However, using that main frame, I will have to think in advance, how am I going to use the space? Strong advice here, think of these kind of points in advance, not later on. Because then you may struggle, you may end up with sections that are rather long in comparison to other sections, and you may have a paper without a conclusion or without an introduction because you run out of space. I mean, for some people, this is pretty obvious, but I'd rather be very obvious about these kind of things. Another section within the sub-chapter, and again, these are 3 sections: concepts, theories, and kinds of states. All of them brought together within the same chapter, state, all of them part of the same book, territorial dispute and state sovereignty. So there is always a link between the title, the aim, and the objectives. Yeah. So let me show you here the title. What do you want to research? If I'm telling you my complete title is about territorial dispute and state sovereignty, I already have the clear intention, the clear idea where I'm heading. So the reader, by only reading the cover of my book, will have a sort of idea where he or she may go with me as a writer. Now, what do you want to achieve? So that's already inside the book, or that's already inside your article. Usually the first or second paragraph, certainly the first page. Try not to leave it too later, so usually the first page is a good idea. What do you want to achieve? So from territorial disputes, what do I want to do? That's my aim. My aim is to put a solution to territorial dispute that in principle don't seem to have a solution. Again, like the Israel and Palestine difference, Falklands, Gibraltar, Kashmir, and so many others. And how I'm going to do this, we'll talk about this in a second. So now I'm going to dedicate the rest of the session, so a few more minutes, to title, aims, and I'm hoping to cover objectives as well. The title. This is a strong advice as well. Try to think of a title, try to think of a theme that you are interested in, especially if you are thinking of doing a PhD or writing a book. Why? Because you will spend many, many days, many months, and possibly years writing that PhD or writing your book. If you are thinking of writing an academic paper, even in those cases, although they will be shorter than a PhD thesis or a book, try to think in terms of practicalities. What kind of area, what kind of theme you want to explore, you want to change, you want to argue, you want to complain about. Usually a tip, you think about the things you enjoy reading. Because if you don't enjoy reading them, chances are you're not going to complete your article. Why? Because one of the many part, the most important probably in the first section of any of these written works, is the literature review. You will have to spend many days reading authors that have already dealt with that particular theme. So if you don't enjoy reading about that particular theme, writing your article with, or writing your book even more, will be very hard. So my advice, first of all, an area, theme in which you have interest, and then secondly, you enjoy reading about it. Current academic and professional literature. Yes, this is part of the literature review. I'll cover this in my second section. And so again, in 2 weeks' time. And what we're going to do with the people who are attending today this session, I'm going to ask you to start thinking about a problem you may want to explore. Not now the title, just a problem. In my case, since I was a child, I've been always interested in the case of the Falklands, Malvinas Islands, territorial disputes or sovereignty conflicts. So try to already think about very broadly right now about a problem you may want to explore. Yeah? Again, that it's a must. That's a strong advice. That to me it's a must. Before you start writing anything, try to think about the problem you want to explore. You are interested in exploring, you are interested in reading about, you are interested in knowing more about. So again, I'm now setting your intention. I'm going to be asking you in a few minutes when I stop the recording to tell me what kind of problem you want to address. How do we go about it? Once we have the problem established, before we go into writing a title, you may have what I call a working title. The title may change until you send it to the publisher. Even if you send a book proposal or an academic journal, the title can change until before it's been published. So my advice, you may have a working title. The main point right now is to decide when you set, your problem. I think, I'd like to do something about territorial disputes. Yeah. Okay, what do you want to do precisely? What do you want to achieve? So that should be your aim. What is the intention behind all this thing? Whose intention? Your intention. So here, my kind of questions, the kind of questions I'm going to be asking you later when you talk to me after, we stop the recording. Do you want to sort something out? Do you want to compare an issue with any other issue, a jurisdiction with any other jurisdiction, a particular role with any other particular rule? Do you want to compare national law with international law? What do you want to do? Do you want to simply assess? Do you want to argue in favor? Do you want to argue against a particular theory, a particular, again, legislation, a particular case, a particular application of the law? But once again, the big problem, to me, territorial disputes, what I want to do, my main aim is to try to solve them. Then I'll explain how, and then I'll explain why this is important, the justification. We are not doing this today. I'm going to simply ask you to think of what kind of thing you want to explore and how you want to do it. And then the objectives. If I already set my intention, I want to talk, I want to write about territorial disputes. I set my aim, my ambition behind that core theme. I want to solve them. How am I going to do this? Well, I know realistically it would be impossible to solve issues like the difference between Palestine and Israel or Falklands, Malvinas. I don't have the resources, let's say financial resources and so on, or I don't have the team of people. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring the objectives to more precision. So my first objective will be to conceptualize in theory the elements that are common to all territorial disputes, brackets, and I'm going to put state, the concept of state, the concept of sovereignty, and the concept of self-determination. Do we see what I'm doing? So I'm going to be pragmatic in making the decision from this theme, territorial disputes, and my aim, I want to solve them. I'm going to be incredibly narrow, incredibly precise, incredibly clear about what I want to do from that big elephant. What area in particular I'm going to explore and how I'm going to explore. So the objectives will need that level of precision. And try to write them, and we'll do that later in the session when I'm working with you, write them in the infinitive. So I'm going to conceptualize key elements in 3 sciences: law, political science, and international relations, brackets, state, sovereignty, and self-determination, to put an example. Then I'm going to compare and contrast these key conceptual elements in relation to certain territorial disputes, brackets, Falkland, Malvinas, Gibraltar, and Kashmir, to put an example. It would be impossible even for a book to compare every territorial dispute under the sun, historically, and even the current ones. Yep. So I'm going to be very, very precise, and so on. So once again, I have my working title that may change. This is a draft. I'm going to have my aim, so the intention I'm setting from that elephant, what kind of area and how I'm going to explore, and from that aim, how I'm going to do it specifically, the objectives I have. I put here other examples just to show you what I mean. Let's put here. This project aims to develop an effective response to the challenge currently faced by schools and other agencies in meeting the requisite of the principle underpinning the Every Child Matter agenda. So we have a certain legislation, and we have the intention to explore how some schools and agencies enable this particular piece of legislation. So that's my aim, a piece of legislation within a certain sphere, schools and agencies that deal with students. Now, I'm going to talk about these objectives always related to my aim. I'm going to identify some of the elements from that agenda. I'm going to evaluate current practice, so how that is working in fact, not only in law. So my first objective has to do with law. The second has to do with fact. Then I'm going to propose ways in which these particular problems may be addressed, may be solved, and so on. So do we see how it works? I set the aim, and then all the objectives will refer to particular points within that aim. All these objectives work in order to make that aim happen. Never, ever confuse aims and objectives. Aim has to do with the broad statement, what I want to do. Yes, what I want to do. I want to put a solution to territorial disputes. Objectives, specific statements, how you want to achieve that. So I'm going to put a solution to territorial dispute by making clear concepts. So how do I rephrase this into an objective? To conceptualize key elements in law, political science, and so on. I'm hoping I'm clear now with these examples. So now, I mean, 2 more minutes before I stop the recording, 2 or 3 more minutes just to repeat myself. I'm going to ask you to think of a problem you may want to explore. Then we'll decide whether you want to solve that problem, to argue for, to argue against, and so on. We can make the decision later. But in principle, think of a problem you may have an interest in. I guess you are doing law, or somehow you are studying law or researching about law, so I'm assuming it will be a legal issue, a legal theme, a legal problem. And then try to rephrase that into a sentence. So describe the problem you want to address, how you want to do it. But first of all, what kind of problem, what kind of theme you want to talk about, yeah? And what kind of problem you want to read about, because you will reading quite a lot about that problem, yeah? So think of that problem and just a sentence. Don't give a paragraph, and that's a tip for any writer. Don't give a paragraph, because by bringing a paragraph, you will bring many ideas. You need, although it shouldn't be that precise at this stage because we are only drafting, you need a certain degree of precision. You are doing yourself a favor. So rather than a paragraph, think of a sentence. Try to translate into a sentence the kind of problem you want to explore. From there, think of, okay, if I see a problem in territorial disputes, or if I see a problem in this particular legislation, what portion of that legislation I want to address in particular? Yeah? So to me, it's not everything about territorial disputes, it's about how to solve territorial disputes. And that will give you organically, automatically, your aim. And then we'll start exploring objectives, from this particular aim, how to solve them, how you are going to achieve that aim. Yeah? Before we go, because this is part of the recording, you're more than welcome to join. I'm part of a larger group, Juris North. We are right now 9 universities in 8 different locations. Aberdeen, Durham, Hull, Liverpool, Manchester, Newcastle, I'm missing Newcastle in the logo, Surrey, and Westminster. We do monthly sessions with experts from around the world, questions and answers, and we do roundtables as well. If you want to join us, send me an email. I'll put you in touch with the right people, and you are more than welcome. Right now, we are doing the sessions online. And of course, the Manchester Law Journal, because I'm doing this particular presentation, and it will be uploaded on YouTube for the Manchester Law Journal. So if you do have any question, feel free to contact them or contact me. Once again, my details here. Happy to answer any comment, happy to answer any question. My personal website, my personal Twitter, and my personal email account. And without anything else to say, let me here stop the recording, and then we can start with the live session.